Greetings to you, Mr. Ambassador. Greetings. We can see you. We are happy. We mentioned you several times. This morning we recollected how we got together in your office to discuss the idea of creating one Ukrainian communication hub in March of 2014. So we recollected that moment and the moment of our coordinated cooperation, the first half a year of 2014, when you were heading the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Now we would like to show a piece of one of your briefings at the UCMC in March of 2014, and we would like to request you to say what was implemented, what wasn't. You just returned from the business trip where the non-nuclear status of Ukraine was reconfirmed. These were negotiations dedicated to Budapest Memorandum and then also the reconfirmation of non-nuclear status of Ukraine. As to the summit on nuclear security, we had a very serious support of Ukraine. We again confirmed our commitment on non-nuclear status of Ukraine, which was absolutely positively perceived by all the participants. We also emphasized the importance of following the provisions of Budapest Memorandum, according to which territorial integrity of Ukraine was guaranteed, as well as political sovereignty. Basically, the provisions of that memorandum were discussed in the speeches made by other participants, and that was the ground to warn other countries in the future so that they strictly execute the signed documents, because non-execution of Budapest Memorandum by other countries basically the connection was interrupted. My question to you was, is there the feeling that something could have been done differently, or what else could have been done, especially in the context of this Ukrainian reconfirmation? Now I don't see you, Mr. Ambassador, but us, but that's okay. But I see you and I hear you. We want to see you. We have two big screens. I'm there. So please tell us, that was the briefing immediately after your business trip. We reconfirm our peaceful intentions. We are not sure whether our partners who signed the Budapest Memorandum were serious. 5 years after, what can you say about that? First of all, I would like to greet you with 5th anniversary. I'm pleased that the UCMC was created and helped a lot to Ukrainian diplomacy, new Ukrainian diplomacy 5 years ago. And the fact that you are there now, I'm happy to see you, Natalia, and talk to you briefly. But every time I will be happy to see you and talk more. In fact, when you say whether a lot could be done 5 years ago, I'm impressed by what we managed to do within this short period of time in the information space especially. You created such a powerful platform as UCMC, which for such a short period of time is now trusted by Western journalist partners and Ukrainian society. That was a big breakthrough. I'm happy that I was your partner in those days, and I believe that without your platform, it would be difficult to give all these main messages to our not partners but to societies in countries of our partners. Talking about events of 5 years ago and about Budapest Memorandum, we need to remember about the circumstances in which we held these consultations. First of all, Yatsenyuk's government that was created then, this government was just 1 week old at that time, the new Minister of Foreign Affairs, new tasks, new challenges, absolutely new for Ukrainian diplomacy circumstances, which were direct military aggression in Crimea, and new tasks like having negotiations in the framework of Budapest Memorandum, consultations as well in a very short period of time. I believe that by that time we did maximum of what we could do, taking into account, considering the fact that our Western partners were at a loss. They did not know what to do. We brought them the text of document of Budapest Memorandum. I was in Paris then together with Sergei Kislitsa, who's the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. A few weeks, well, he then was also the Deputy Foreign Minister. And we showed that we need help and protection. And they read this memorandum and they said, but here it says only about consultations, and we have consultations. And we'll be doing something in respect to countries that attacked Ukraine, Russia in this case, or we will conduct consultations under the UN Security Council, and we will demand certain actions from the UN Security Council, actions against aggressor, and these actions were made. But, in fact, not all participants or those who signed the Budapest Memorandum participated in consultations. Russia, to put it not diplomatically, said that they're not interested in that, they don't recognize the authorities, they don't recognize the document, and they disregarded the document that they signed and the partners with who they signed it, Ukraine, US, and Great Britain. At the time when Americans and the British were very much engaged into taking Russia to the table of negotiations. Had we to do that? Yes, I believe yes. Recently in an interview I said, unless we had this Budapest format, we wouldn't be able to get Russia engaged into a different format. We wouldn't be able to force Russia to talk to Ukraine, because at that time our British and American partners had additional argument. Once you don't want to talk in this format, then sit in a different format, and that was Geneva format, and let's think of how to stop your aggression. And then we managed to create this format and start negotiations on introducing sanctions against Russia, which influenced the decision of not continuing military aggression in the east of Ukraine. The Crimea was annexed by that time, but the aggression did not continue. And also we managed at the UN General Assembly to pass the resolution where 100 countries supported the territorial integrity of Ukraine. And that was done by Ukrainian diplomacy, but also thanks to active participation of American and British partners. That was very important, and that is how we got this UN 100, the countries who supported Ukraine. I will ask you the question on sanctions. We understand that the first steps were critical. Whatever Russia was saying, they still have a big effect. They continue to be effective. And with colleagues, we're discussing whether we need to make an attempt, European partners should understand more that every operation like Skripal or even the attempt, if attempt failed to influence elections in France, Germany, Austria, where the sanctions should become stricter so that in the hybrid war, not just what's happening physically, but what's happening informationally should have its price, because it looks like we and European countries, we invest, we put our resources into critical thinking, into education, into educating more responsible citizens, but until the criminal, the aggressor, is punished, are we making the world better? I believe that the events and the trends that we have in the West, where Russia is trying to influence the developments in this or that country via protests or interference into elections or via poisoning, these are to be for policymakers, decision makers, for politicians, the basis to reassess Russia. And I need to say that the process is going on, but very slowly. But nevertheless, there is certain positive. And I see in my colleagues the ambassadors who are accredited in Warsaw from the countries which became partially victims to Russian interference. Their attitude to Russia is different. They understand that Russia could be a threat. But we still lack understanding to change the approach of their governments to Russia. There's understanding of diplomats who are at the front line of the fact that Russia started a large-scale war, hybrid war with the West, but it is to be transformed into governments and parliaments which will make decisions against Russia. So to react. Every country has to understand the level of Russian influence on their economy, culture, information space. That depends on the cultural identical situation. Together with our partners from the NGO sector, with like European think tank from Prague, we work on the countries to understand it more, those countries which were attacked and not. Tell us a few words about Poland. No one could imagine 5 years ago that Poland will be not easy case. What do you think? Will Poland, how will they understand the Russian influence on them in their politics, economy, and how will it be resisting it? Do you have this optimism? First of all, I think that it's not always comfortable for diplomats to work. And I did not think 4 years ago that it will be so difficult to have this dialogue, Ukrainian-Polish dialogue. It has become difficult because of the historical past, which Russia is using basically hitting some painful spots like victims of Volyn, UPA, Wisla operation. They are doing it via different channels, mostly via rightist or radicals, and very often getting Slovaks or Hungarians involved into that. But I believe that Poland itself understands the threat coming from Russia, and in all these strategic issues it supports us. They understand how important Russian threat is for Russia and Ukraine. Unfortunately, Ukrainian issue is not high on the agenda in European affairs, and Poland, because they don't have good relations with the EU, they cannot always support our interests the way we would like it to do. But nevertheless, the issue of sanctions, extension of sanctions, introducing new sanctions, Nord Stream 2, approximation of Ukraine and the EU, Crimea. In all that, Poland is on our side. They're supporting us. But why I have optimism? Millions of Ukrainians who come to Poland. On the one hand, this is not very good for our economy and not very good for our universities. I see Madam Minister here. Greetings, Lila. But nevertheless, these young people who come here, they learn how to live a new way, and having gained knowledge and contacts, they will return to Ukraine. And many of them want to do that. They're waiting for better times. But Poland has passed approximately the same way. They were going to the West, then they were coming to Poland and making revolution. Probably we don't need more revolutions in Ukraine, but we saw in which environment you could live, and I believe they will want to introduce such environment in Ukraine, and they create different atmosphere in Poland. I couldn't imagine that on the information stands in airports, railway stations or kiosks, there will be instructions in Ukrainian language, Polish, English and Ukrainian. announcements in the public transportation in Ukrainian. Some local newspapers, regional newspapers are published with Ukrainian pages. And there are banks where they have provide services to Ukrainian clients in Ukrainian language. So I believe this communication between these societies will be very optimistic for our future. We know that you can turn any difficult situation into positive, talking about songs and not songs. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for optimistic completion. Thank you. And we had a very intensive dialogue. And thank you, all the team of the center. We love you and wish you success. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador.